Destination Fulfillment, life coaching for business owners. Today, we're going to talk about change.
That's right, because the only constant in this world is change. Just look at 2020 for an example. I mean, last year, everything was forcing things to change so dramatically in so many unpredictable ways. And as a business owner, we have to think quickly and adapt to these changes. You know, the difference between a welcome change and forced changes is that it's easy to change when it's something you want to do. If it's a welcome change, you usually have no problem being like, cool, let's do this, and changing things. But when it's something that's kind of forced upon you, it's often much harder to manage. It's harder to wrap your head around it.
So much harder to do.
But one way you can help with that is to try and anticipate the changes, so you can make a plan for it. And you know what? Planning will allow you to act accordingly instead of having to react in a split, like spur of the moment type of decision.
It really lets you think through how you're going to move forward. So, for example, in PR, we often have our clients go through what I like to call doomsday scenarios to try to figure out how the organization or client or human will respond in a time of crisis. So, for example, if you're a big mega organization, actually, the Cinnamon Toast Crunch recently had one where someone claimed they found shrimp tails in their Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal. Believe it or not, that would be a crisis situation, and the company would have to figure out how they're going to react to that and how they're going to change for that. Well, if the company did their job right, or somebody at the company did their job right, they would have actually gone through all these scenarios and been like, well, what if somebody finds something weird or claims to find something weird in our food?
A shrimp tail.
Like a shrimp tail. How would we react to that? And going through these situations, that was our dog. Going through these situations actually allows you to think through and see all the different possible scenarios and how you want to move forward in it. And there are all these different influencers that can affect change, and we need to be prepared for them.
Yeah, a great example of these different influences is environmental influences. Our environment changes around us all the time. I'm talking like our global weather environment. The seasons change every 3 months. Gas prices change. These things that change around us, oftentimes we're already planned and prepared for without even thinking about it, because this is something we're regularly used to, and we've planned it out. We go, depending on where you're at in the world or the country, you plan to go from your winter wardrobe to your spring and summer wardrobe. If you're in agriculture, which many small business owners are in the agriculture business, we're in spring now. This is the time where you're planting your new seed, and that is such a great analogy for so many things. And change and planting the seed in this podcast episode, I mean, it is so spot on with, you got to plant your new seed for change. And whether it's, going from snow tires to your regular all-terrain tires, you're changing the wardrobe. If you're in a business where, you're in retail, like all the winter gear that you sell, anything that's left is already been put away, and all of your summer stuff is already out. So these are just little changes that we anticipate on a regular basis because we're used to them. What if you looked at your own life and planned out and anticipated changes down the road the same way we plan for the changing of the seasons. What could you possibly accomplish? Like, the potential there is limitless. Every single new experience we go through, every time we gain new knowledge, has the power to change us, and it is our obligation to ourselves to recognize these events and decide how you're going to embrace that change. You always have a choice. Whether you stay the same or you change, it is a choice. Don't let anybody tell you that you have no ability to choose and make the choice for what your future is going to decide. Because we do get to decide our future.
As you're talking about this, I'm really thinking about when I went off to college. As some of you may know, I grew up in Southern California, went to college in Ohio. It was the first time I left home, and when I came back for winter break, summer break, whatever it was, everyone around me was like, "Oh my God, Janine, you've changed," like as if it was a bad thing. And really, it was a good thing. It was me going away, getting out of my comfort zone, and figuring out who I wanted to be. Because in high school and before, I was very much the wallflower. I was very quiet. I wasn't very outgoing. And that's not who I wanted to be. I wanted to have a voice, and I wanted to be maybe a little bit extroverted. And so when I went away to college, I did all these things to help me grow as a person. And when I came back, everyone was like, "Oh my God, she's not just being quiet and sitting in the corner and saying nothing. Like, she's telling her side of the story. She's telling her opinions." And it was a conscious change that I had to make, or conscious choice that I had to make to come out of my shell and to do these things. And that choice opened up my future for me. It opened up so many different opportunities, and it was something that I had to consciously choose to do.
And going away to college is one of those big life events, especially when, as a student, you go away, far away from home, where you're not seeing your family or those same friends all the time. That's really an amazing opportunity as a young person to really define yourself and choose who you're going to be and how you're going to let these experiences change you. We all go through these different life events, and they all have the power to change our perspective and our priorities. I mean, God forbid the death of a loved one or the birth of a new one. One change that many entrepreneurs struggle with is deciding to leave a safe corporate job. And when I say safe, I mean complacent, secure. You're not, you have little risk of losing it all. You can go in, and you know what? Corporate jobs have a lot of benefits to them, and I'm not going to knock them. I think everybody at some point has had that safe corporate job. Even entrepreneurs, that's a great place to gain experience and really get to know and learn from mentors, people that are ahead of you in the game. But one of those big struggles that many entrepreneurial-minded people go through is making that decision to leave that corporate job and start the business of their dreams. If you're at that crossroads trying to convince yourself to launch a business, to overcome that fear of change, the fear of the unknown, it can be extremely challenging. No one can make that decision for you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, hey, get out there and run your own business, because it might not be right for you, or at least not right now. Maybe it is. I don't know. But
only you can decide that.
Exactly. Only you can decide that. No one can make the decision for you. But you can and will be persuaded. You will be persuaded by the naysayers, persuaded by your financial obligations. those things ticking in the back of your mind, like the debt and the bills you have to pay. Maybe how are you going to pay for child care or tuitions, maybe medical expenses, maybe even a medical condition that you have that you need to take into consideration before you make the decision to launch your own business. Remember, the only person that can make this decision is you. Having said that,
there's always an asterisk.
but if you're married, talk to your spouse. Do not surprise them with this information after you've already made a decision to quit your job. This should be discussed with anyone who is dependent and affected by your income or your work schedule or the benefits that your employer gives you.
It's like when I left my corporate job in January to come work on Diorio coaching full time. This was actually, for us, it was about a 6-month process. We first started talking about it, I think it was back in August.
Yeah, around there.
And it was kind of a joke because I was miserable at my job, and I was like, what if I just, quit my job and started working full time? And that joke of a frustrated comment actually sparked a little idea in our head, and we were like, okay, well,
what if
I did that? Yeah, what if I did that? What would we have to do? What would we have to give up? How would we get benefits? How would we work on this? Like, what would be my role? What would be his role? Although those were already kind of played out because of who we are, but the point is like, we sat down and we discussed this, and we played out different scenarios. Like, what if we don't do it? Like, what's it gonna look like? What if we do it? What's it gonna look like? And we made a plan, and the naysayers in my life didn't get to find out really that we were talking about this until we decided to do it. And that's not necessarily to say that we didn't tell anybody. I told a couple of my close friends, one of which is actually just she's very risk adverse, and she was like, are you sure? Just think about this. Did you think about this? Did you think about this? And
if you couldn't tell, she's also in PR and does a lot of the doomsday planning scenarios.
It's a gift. Anyways, so, and those were good for me to hear, because I could be like, oh, well, maybe we didn't think about this one. Or, yeah, we did talk about this. We talked about this. We talked about this. But basically what it comes down to is that we kept our decision to ourselves until it was time to basically jump off the bridge, so to speak. Don't jump off bridges. I don't know why I just said that. But anyways, so the naysayers are going to try to convince you that's not a good idea.
And to be clear, the naysayers are most likely your loved ones, and they 9 times out of 10 have nothing but your best interest at heart when they say that. They may have gone down the road that you're thinking about going down and launching their own business, and they might not have had success, and they're probably just trying to protect you from going through the same hardships that they had to go through. So don't let them discourage you based on their experiences. If they've had a bad time, if they didn't find the success that they were looking for, that doesn't mean you're not going to.
And and oftentimes I find that the naysayers are really just projecting their own insecurities or their own fears onto you, and it's not coming from a place of negativity. It's coming from a place of love, and I think that's an important thing to understand, because when my friend is like, well, did you think about this? Did you think about this? I could have easily turned that into oh my god, she doesn't think I can do it. What the fuck? How, is she not a good friend? But really, she was being a good friend because she was coming from a place of love.
And that's where most people are. Well, we all have those one or two naysayers in our lives, those family members that are the negative Nancy, if you will, and always think the worst. And maybe just don't tell them. Maybe let your success speak for itself. Talk to those that you know are going to be able to be objective about it and see you for who you are and what your plan is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they have some words of encouragement or words of advice, or who knows, you tell the right people, they may know the best person for you to talk to that you don't even know. They could put you in touch with the best mentor you could possibly imagine. They could be like, hey, you know what? I know this guy that's been successful doing exactly what you're talking about doing. Let me put you in touch with him. That's something that you would never have known about if you hadn't talked to this person.
Mm-hmm.
So don't keep it to yourself necessarily, but just be careful on who you share this information with, because ultimately it's all your decision. This is going to be your business. It's going to be you and your spouse if you have a spouse, and that's it. That's the only people that really need to worry about it. So go for it. I'm telling you, make the decision that's going to follow your dreams, whether that's climbing a corporate ladder or launching your own business. Follow your dreams. All right, so you followed your dream.
Woohoo! You
launched that business. Congratulations. Your product is selling like hotcakes. But wait, suddenly
it's 2020.
It's 2020 and the market changes, and your product is now inferior or rendered obsolete. You must act quickly. Choose what to do with your business. You essentially have three options here. Stay the course and hope for the best.
Change your product, your business model, or your strategy. I feel like this is a build your own adventure story.
Or by permanently closing or selling your business. What is your decision going to be?
My guess is if you're listening to this podcast, you're likely not going to be wanting to sell or close your business. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, you might be at that point in your life and in your business where you're like, you know what? I'm ready for a change. Maybe I want to start a new business. Maybe I'm ready to retire. Maybe I just want to go sit on a beach and sip on mimosas and let the rest of the world do its thing.
If you like pina coladas.
But like Janine said, you're probably not one of those. You're probably either going to say, hey, I want to change my business. I'm going to adapt. I'm going to overcome. Or maybe you don't believe that this change in the market is going to last very long, and you're just going to try and ride that wave, and you think things are going to turn around.
Like last March when if you're in a corporate job, everyone was sent home and like, oh, work from home for 3 weeks, and now we're a year later.
Right.
But actually, one of my favorite stories or examples about this is Kodak. Because if you don't know, Kodak is a photography company. They create film, they created cameras. If you go to like a CVS or whatever, they're probably the ones that are making your little disposable cameras.
If they're still available.
I hope they are. But Kodak at one time, for about 100 years, was the name in photography. And the photography industry started developing really, really rapidly. And everything about the market was changing. It was changing fast. One day it was all black and white. The next day, color was a thing. The next thing, digital photography started being produced. Well, the interesting thing about digital photography is that in order to create digital photographs, you have to have what's called what they call a sensor, And the sensor is basically the digital version of film. Well, the sensor is in literally every single digital camera made. You can't have a digital camera without it. It's in your phone, it's in your iPad, it's in your computer, it's in your actual camera if you have one of those. The crazy thing about the sensor is Kodak invented it. Okay, so Kodak, this big giant photography producer of film, that's what they're known for. All the film photographers love them. They created the digital sensor. Now, when they created the digital sensor, they had the choice because they saw the market developing and everything changing around them. And they had the choice to stick with film and go all in and keep pushing film, or continue to develop digital photography and push that industry and push those changes. Well, they decided, you know what, this sensor thing, this digital photography thing, it's just a fad, it's not going to happen. And they went all in on film. Well, as you can probably tell, because there's an entire generation that most likely doesn't even know what film is, they made the wrong choice, right? They decided to go into, or lean into the obsolete market, so to speak.
So what ended up happening to them?
They eventually filed for bankruptcy, and they're still around today because bankruptcy doesn't actually close businesses, it just shrinks them. We'll get into that later, but now they're just a fraction of what they were. And if they had leaned into the change, if they had leaned into the possibilities of what could be with the device that they invented, they would be just as big as Nikon, as Canon, as Apple, maybe even. Like all these giant technologies in photography that we all know as household names.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So that's just one of many different examples of what can happen when you choose to stay the same and ride it out. Now, there are examples to where that works for companies. I can remember the vinyl records, well, not personally because I'm not that old, but vinyl records, were the way to get your music for decades and decades. And they saw technologies come and go. Cassette tapes, 8-track tapes came and went, and vinyl records was still the way to have your music played at home. And then the CD came out, and almost overnight, vinyl records became a collector's item. They were no longer the way to get your music. It was no longer the way to listen to your music. It changed virtually overnight in the business world. But it worked for them to, ride it out and stay the same for many, many years, decades, through multiple changes in technology. They were just small little fads, and then one day it didn't work for them. So that's just another example.
Yeah, and that's to say, only you really know your market and your business, as Rodney was saying. So it's really important that you pay attention to what's going on and what, make an educated risk. Pay attention to the quote-unquote disruptors and pay attention to the technologies that are changing. Because every industry, no matter what you're in, is disruptable. People are all the time trying to figure out ways to change an industry and make it better, make it hopefully not worse, but make it better. And, it's up to you to decide what changes to lean into and which ones to avoid. And, that's great. That's your decision. But make sure you're making an educated guess, and because that's all it really is a guess. Mm-hmm. Make sure you're making an educated guess and not an emotional guess.
So far we've talked about how to make changes in your personal life to potentially launch a business. We've talked about if you have a business, making changes to adapt with the times and adapt with technology. Now I'd like to take a moment to talk to you about changing your thinking, changing who you as an individual are. So sometimes we like to, not like to, but sometimes we resist change so that we can avoid leaving our comfort zone. But you know what? Leaving your comfort zone is the only way you grow as a person. Now, having said that, I encourage you to live in the moment and find happiness there. Don't look for happiness down the road. You know, try to live in that moment and be grateful and happy for what you have. And if you are truly happy and content with your life and in your situation right now, then make the choices to stay happy and stay where you're at. But don't resist change. Don't ignore the signs. Don't ignore that little voice in the back of your head. Because when you change, or when change is forced upon you, if that little voice in your head is saying, I want more than what I'm at, I know I could do more, I could be more, I could have more, then I encourage you to seek that out. Seek out the change. Make things small at first, because it can be overwhelming when you're like, let's say, for example, you're working a part-time job making barely more than minimum wage, and you're sitting there like, I want to be a millionaire someday. And you have no concept of how to get from, the where you're at now to that end goal, to that point. And believe me, that's not the end goal. That's just the stepping stone. Because once you get there, your entire your entire vision for your future is going to change. You're like, this was nothing. Now let me go for 5. Forget a million. Let me go for 5 million. You're going to change. So don't ignore those little subtle pings in the back of your head, your conscious, your thought, your whatever you want to call it. If something is telling you you want more, you deserve more, then go for it. Start small. Small changes can grow into big outcomes. Change your habits, your wardrobe, your diet, your exercise routine. Make these small changes. Go from 0 push-ups a day to 5 push-ups a day, and just slowly build up. Put on an outfit that makes you feel good. We've all been living in sweats for over a year now.
I literally did that for 6 months. Hashtag no shame.
No shame. We all were at home for many, many months, if not over a year now. So change those habits. If putting on a nice outfit makes you feel good about yourself, then put on that nice outfit. Do it for you. Don't do it for anyone else. If you're feeling sluggish, what you put in your body can have a huge impact on how you feel. Like, change the diet up a little bit. These small changes will turn into good feelings and those good emotions, and those will have a snowball effect, and they will get bigger and bigger, and you'll soon see opportunities for better changes to better your life and better your future. And as your mindset starts to make these shifts, that mindset is going to be what changes your future. So let's talk about that mindset. Our thoughts are what control our emotions. Many people think it's the other way around, but it is the thought that comes first and the emotion that comes second. So our thoughts control our emotions, and our emotions are going to be what dictates the choices that we make, and those choices are going to lead into our actions. And the actions that you take are what's going to shape your future. So if you're going to change something, where do you start? You start at the beginning. So let's change your thinking. Change those thoughts. Because when you are thinking negatively and you're talking to yourself in this negative self-talk, it's going to affect your emotions. It's going to give you those sad, frustrated, depressed, angry emotions, and you're going to end up choosing, and even if it's self-conscious, you're going to choose these actions and decisions to take that are going to adversely affect you. You want to change your thinking.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes we think to ourselves, and I know I did this a lot, like I thought to myself, like, I'm not blank enough to be successful, or I'm not, smart enough, or
you're not educated enough,
or savvy enough.
I'm not experienced enough.
I'm too young.
I'm too old to leave my job and start a business.
And like these are real. Like, so for example, when I was in grad school, I went to the University of Southern California to get my master's in public relations, and the first day I stepped on campus, I was just like, whoa, what am I doing here? Like, I had total imposter syndrome, and for like months, I was telling myself, like, what am I doing here? I don't have any PR experience. I don't have a traditional background. I definitely don't have any connections. Like, I'm not a millionaire's daughter. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not whatever. And meanwhile, I was applying for internships and trying to get a job in PR so I could like prove that I belonged here, and not a single one would go through. I would have a couple interviews. There was a couple times where I was like the final candidate, but or one of the final candidates, but I was never getting the job. And this whole time I'm like, I just don't have enough experience. I don't have a traditional background. All my classmates have some sort of experience or internship or whatever. It just wasn't landing for me. And finally I actually started seeing a therapist, and because I had a lot of issues going on at the time. But I changed the way I talked to myself, and I said, you know what, I do have PR experience. I was doing all of this stuff that we're learning in our classes. I was doing all this when I was at the Peace Corps, and my untraditional background could actually be a strength. And I started changing the script, and I started changing the conversation I was having with myself. And I decided, you know what, I'm gonna apply for this Disney internship. It was exactly what I wanted to do. It was in corporate responsibility, and it's Disney. It's like one of the, it's the biggest company on the planet, basically. And I was like, what do I have to lose? The worst they can say is no, like everybody else, right? Well, I applied for the internship. I went through several rounds of interviews, and I was literally in a Lyft on my way to my therapist, and I got a phone call, and they told me I got the job. I can't tell you how much I was crying. I was like, what in the world? But it was literally because when I changed the script on myself, when I changed my thinking, and I changed all those I'm not statements to I am statements, it built up my confidence. So when I walked into those interviews, I could explain to them why I belong there, why Disney needed me, not why I needed Disney.
And you know why that is? It's because our subconscious mind is only there in the background. It's always there, working to prove us right. No matter what you say to yourself, your mind is going to work on proving you right.
It proved me right.
Yeah, every time you said that, I'm not connected enough, I don't have enough experience, I'm not smart enough to be here on this campus with these people. Every time you said something like that, your mind is in the background working to find little examples to prove those statements correct. Every time you messed up on a question on a test, every time you had anything happen that was in alignment with what you told yourself, it says, oh, see, there you are. You were right. You weren't smart enough. You weren't connected enough. See, that's another interview that didn't go so well. That's another job or another internship that you didn't get. But as soon as you changed your thinking, as soon as you went from I'm not to I am, your mind, again, it's still there in the background working to prove you right. When you say, I am connected enough, all of a sudden you realize that you have a connection, and it's no wonder. I mean, we all have this in the back of our head. I'll give you an example. You just bought a car. You bought that Honda Civic you've been wanting, and you got it in that pearl white. You love it. All of a sudden, you're driving around town. That's the only car you see everywhere. You're seeing these pearl white Honda Civics pop up everywhere. Why? It's because it's at the forefront of your mind. It's what's important to you now. It's what you're talking to yourself about. You're thinking about your car, and now you're seeing that same car everywhere. You're thinking about how you're not smart enough, or you're not connected enough, or experienced enough, and you're seeing all the examples to prove that that is there. That's the truth. It's trying to prove you right. So change your thinking from I'm not to I am. That's going to change your emotions from those sad, frustrated, angry, bitter, depressed emotions to emotions of confidence and determination and worthiness and self-love. You're going to feel all these things, and you're just going to be bubbled up with that confidence to make the phone call or make the introduction that you wouldn't have had the confidence to make otherwise. Once you've changed that emotional energy, you'll begin to take the actions that will align you with your dreams. Once you tell yourself that your dreams are possible, your subconscious mind again is going to try and prove you right. If you believe it is possible, you will see the opportunities. You still have to take those opportunities. It's not going to be handed to you, but your thoughts will align your emotions and your actions so that you can fulfill your dreams and your goals. Now, we're wrapping up this episode of the podcast, and like we told you in the introductory episode, we're going to end each episode with a Rodney's Rules for Fulfillment. Before we do, we would like to ask you to follow us on social media or go to our website, and the website is www.dioriocoaching.com. And go ahead.
That's DEIORIO coaching.com. And follow us on social media, connect with us on LinkedIn. All of our handles are at Diorio Coaching. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn.
I think that's about it.
I think that's about it right now.
That's about it right now. But yeah, that's Diorio Coaching. So all the social medias are at DEIORIO Coaching.
So Rodney's Rules for Fulfillment today is:
talk to yourself like you're encouraging an 8-year-old. Talk to your inner 8-year-old. You all know the child in you, and I'm sure you remember that when you were a child, you were full of wonder and possibility. You believed that anything was possible. You could be anything you wanted to be. I'm sure you had a teacher, a parent, or a grandparent tell you how wonderful you were. Talk to yourself in that same way. Talk to yourself and tell yourself you are smart, you are talented, you are athletic, you are pretty, you are artistic, you are handsome. What am I leaving out?
You can do the hard thing.
You can do the hard thing. You are more than capable. You can be anything you want to be. Talk to yourself like you're encouraging an 8-year-old. talk to your inner 8-year-old. We want nothing but the best for you and for your business. We are here to bring life coaching to business owners. I thank you for listening, and I hope that you have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you again very soon.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.